Ambassador William Carter sat straight-backed in his chair, trying to hide his frustration. Beside him, Samantha Moore, his trusted aide for 5 years, tapped notes into her tablet. They were sitting through yet another lecture from the blue-skinned Arturian delegate about humanity's violent tendencies and technological immaturity. The human delegation must understand, the Arturian said, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, that expansion rights are granted based on species maturity. Your kind has only been spacefaring for a mere century. Carter glanced around the vast council chamber. 200 species were represented here, in this giant ring of seats that floated above an artificial lake. Beautiful lights danced across the ceiling, designed to calm and inspire. Today, they just gave Carter a headache. Ambassador Israel, Carter said when the Arturian finally paused, humanity has been a part of this council for 30 years. In that time, we shared our medical advances, which the Tellarite delegation themselves admitted saved billions during the Crimson Plague. Primitive chemical solutions, muttered a delegate from the back. Carter continued as if he hadn't heard. We've offered our quantum computing innovations, which increased council communication speeds by 40%. And our artificial gravity systems are now standard on most council vessels. The Quarian high speaker leaned forward, her scaled face catching the light. Yes, human Carter. Your species has provided some useful tools. That is why you are allowed 3 new star systems for colonization. The Xelari, however, have proven themselves over millennia. They receive 15 systems, as is proper. Carter looked down at the message that had just appeared on his tablet. It was from Earth's President Ross. Enough is enough. Proceed as discussed. He took a deep breath. This moment would change everything. Humanity had prepared for years, waiting to see if things would improve. They hadn't. High Speaker, Carter said, rising to his feet. The delegation from Earth has an announcement. A murmur spread through the chamber. Humans rarely spoke out of turn. Earth and all human colonies are officially withdrawing from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. For 3 seconds, there was complete silence. Then the chamber erupted. Ridiculous. They cannot. Typical emotional response. The High Speaker banged her crystal gavel. Order. Ambassador Carter, surely you are not serious. No species has ever left the Council voluntarily. We are very serious, Carter said. For 30 years, we've been treated as second-class members. We've contributed breakthrough technologies only to be dismissed as primitive. We've followed your rules while watching others break them without consequences. The Xelari ambassador stood, his gold robes shimmering. The humans are simply throwing a tantrum because they did not get their way. They will return begging within a solar cycle. Laughter spread through the chamber. Carter let it wash over him. We've already begun the process, he said when the noise died down. Within 5 years, you won't find a single human in council space. Now the mockery turned to confusion. The Arturian delegate blinked rapidly. That is impossible. Your species lacks the technology for such rapid relocation. Carter smiled for the first time that day. You've always underestimated us. That was your mistake. He nodded to Samantha, and they both stood. As they walked toward the exit, the chamber filled with shouts and questions. Only one delegate, an ancient Volini named Nerzak, watched them with knowing eyes. His species had once been in humanity's position, centuries ago. At the grand doors, Carter turned back to face the council one last time. You mistake our patience for weakness, he said, his voice carrying clearly across the chamber. You'll soon discover how mistaken you've been. The doors closed behind them with a final heavy thud. Do you think they'll take us seriously now? Samantha asked as they walked toward their ship. Carter looked at the stars visible through the station's transparent ceiling. No, not yet. He smiled slightly. But they will. 5 years passed. The Galactic Council barely mentioned humanity anymore. When they did, it was with amusement. The human tantrum, they called it. Most believed the humans would return. begging to be readmitted. Captain Alan Foster stood on the bridge of the UES Dauntless, watching the stars through the main viewport. His ship patrolled the edge of human space near the Arcturus system. The Dauntless was an impressive vessel, but Foster knew the Council races still viewed human ships as primitive. "Captain," called Lieutenant Ellis from her sensor station, "I'm picking up unusual activity at Harper's colony." Foster walked over to her station. "What kind of activity?" "Mass movement. It looks like they're leaving." Foster frowned. Harper's colony was home to over 3 million people. "Confirm that, Lieutenant." After several minutes, Ellis looked up. "Confirmed, sir. They're evacuating. And it's not just Harper's colony. I'm detecting similar patterns at Jensen's World and New Seattle." Foster returned to his chair and opened a secure channel. "Admiral Wright, this is Captain Foster. I need to speak with you immediately." An hour later, Foster stood in the Dauntless's secure communication room. The holographic image of Admiral Catherine Wright flickered before him. "What you're seeing is Operation Exodus," Captain Wright said. Her face was serious, but there was excitement in her eyes. "It's been underway for nearly 4 years now." 4 years, but what about the Council's monitoring? Wright smiled. "They see what we want them to see. Empty ships coming and going. Normal traffic patterns. They don't count the people, Captain." "But where is everyone going? We don't have enough habitable planets in our space for this kind of movement." Wright's image leaned forward. "What I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest level. You're being informed because the Dauntless will soon join the operation." She pressed a button, and a new image appeared next to her. It showed something that looked like an engine, but unlike any Foster had seen before. "This is the displacement drive," Wright said. "Director Miller and his team at Special Projects have been developing it in secret for 15 years, long before we left the Council." Foster stared at the image. "What does it do?" "It shifts matter between dimensional planes, allowing for near-instantaneous travel across any distance." Foster's eyes widened. The Council scientists said that was impossible. They were wrong. Wright's smile grew. "We found a star cluster, Captain. Far beyond Council space, over 200 habitable worlds. We're calling it the Haven Expanse." Foster sat down heavily. "We're not just leaving the Council. We're leaving known space entirely." "Exactly. When the Council told Ambassador Carter that humans received only 3 new systems, they didn't realize we found something much better." The door chimed, and Foster's first officer entered. "Captain, we've received new orders. We're to proceed to Earth immediately." Foster nodded. "Thank you, Commander." When they were alone again, he turned back to Wright. "The Council races will try to stop us when they figure this out. By the time they realize what's happening, most of humanity will already be gone. We've been quiet about it, moving people gradually, colony by colony, city by city. On Earth, Director Gregory Miller walked through the massive underground facility where the final displacement drives were being built. Each one was the size of a small car, but could move an entire space station. "The final tests are complete," his assistant said, handing him a tablet. "The drives are ready." Miller looked at the status report showing what percentage of humanity had already relocated to the Haven Expanse. The number surprised even him. 76%. "Begin the final phase," he said. "It's time to move Earth itself." Across human space, the exodus continued. Quietly, methodically, humanity was disappearing. Not with panic or chaos, but with careful planning. And the Council, in their arrogance, noticed nothing. Ambassador Lorith of the Quarian species stepped out of her sleek diplomatic vessel onto Earth soil. After 5 years, the Council had finally decided to check on the humans. They expected to find a struggling civilization ready to beg for readmission. What Lorith found instead was puzzling. The spaceport was operating smoothly but seemed strangely empty. The city beyond, New Washington, had many vacant buildings. The streets had only a fraction of the people she remembered from her last visit. Ambassador Lorith, a voice called. A human woman in a formal gray suit approached. "I'm Director Evelyn Martinez. Welcome to Earth." Lorith bowed slightly. "Director, the Council sent me to discuss humanity's potential return to galactic civilization." Martinez's expression remained neutral. "I see. Let's talk in my office." As they walked through the city, Lorith noticed more empty spaces, shops closed, parks without children. "Your population seems reduced," she said carefully. "We've been reorganizing," Martins replied simply. In orbit around Earth's moon, Commander Jason Powell oversaw the final loading of Luna Command. More than 20 massive colony ships, each carrying 50,000 people, were preparing to leave. "Status report," Powell said to his operations chief. 87% of Earth's population has already departed for Haven," the chief replied. "Luna is at 93% evacuation. Mars completed last week." Powell nodded. "And the displacement drive for Earth?" "Director Miller reports it's ready. They've installed the anchors at strategic points around the planet." Powell looked out the window at the blue-green world below. Soon, it would be gone from this space. Not destroyed, just elsewhere. In Martinez's office, Lorith was growing frustrated. "Director, Council sensors have detected unusual energy signatures around Earth. We demand to know what you're doing." Martinez took a sip of her water. "Nothing that violates any agreement, Ambassador. We left the Council, not the other way around." "Is humanity developing prohibited weapons?" Martinez almost laughed. "No, we're leaving." Lorith blinked all four of her eyes. "Leaving? I don't understand." "You didn't want us as equals, so we found somewhere else to call home." "That's absurd. Where would billions of humans go?" Martinez smiled. "Somewhere beyond your maps." At that moment, alarms blared across the Quarian embassy. Lorith received an urgent message from her ship. Council long-range sensors had detected something impossible. Thousands of human vessels appearing from nowhere at the edge of solar systems, evacuating the remaining colonists, then vanishing again. "What is this technology?" Lorith demanded, standing now. "The Council has never seen anything like it." "That's because the Council experts said it was impossible," Martins replied calmly. "They were wrong." On the main communications channel, broadcast to all Council species, President Daniel Ross appeared. His message was brief but clear. "To the Galactic Council, we bid you farewell. Perhaps in a few centuries, we'll meet again as equals." Lorith rushed back to her ship, calling for Council warships to intercept the human evacuation. But she was too late. Across space, Council observers watched in stunned silence as the impossible happened. First, all remaining human ships activated strange new engines that made them flicker and vanish. Then Earth itself, along with its moon, Mars, and all orbital stations, began to glow with the same energy field. The effect spread, growing brighter until it was painful to watch. And then, in an instant, they were gone. Where Earth had been for billions of years, there was now only empty space. No debris, no radiation, no sign of destruction. Just absence. In her ship, Lorith stared at the empty sensors. The species that the Council had dismissed as primitive had just done the impossible. And the galaxy would never be the same. 2 years after humanity's disappearance, the Galactic Council faced problems they never expected. The High Speaker sat at the head of a table surrounded by worried delegates. Reports from across Council space showed the same thing. Things were falling apart. "The Rigel trading route has collapsed," said the Tellarite representative. "Without the human shipping companies, we can't move goods fast enough. The medical stations in the outer systems are failing," added another delegate. "The human-designed equipment is breaking down, and no one knows how to fix it." Nicole Reed watched from her seat near the back of the chamber. She was one of the few humans who had chosen to stay behind. As a Council enforcer, she had spent 15 years upholding Council law. Now she watched as the mighty council realized just how much they had depended on the species they had looked down on. "This is temporary," said the auxiliary ambassador, his gold robes now looking slightly faded. "We controlled the galaxy before humans, and we will manage without them." But his words lacked conviction. The auxiliary had taken over the star systems the humans left behind, only to discover that nothing worked properly anymore. The advanced farming systems needed human technicians. The defense networks ran on human software that was now failing without updates. Nickel stood up. "The Council has a bigger problem than trade routes and medical stations. Your military advantage is slipping." The chamber went quiet. Nickel was known for her direct approach. "Explain," demanded the High Speaker. "For 30 years, you incorporated human military ideas into your strategies while pretending our approaches were primitive," Nickel said. "Now your enemies have noticed that your tactics aren't evolving anymore." She pulled up a star map showing recent border skirmishes. 3 minor species that had always feared the Council were now pushing against its borders, testing its strength. In a research lab on the Council homeworld, Dr. Patrick Reeves studied a failing power node. He was another human who had stayed behind, working as a scientist for the Council. Council engineers stood around him, watching helplessly as the advanced power system flickered. "Can you fix it?" asked the head engineer. Patrick sighed. "Maybe temporarily, but it needs a complete replacement of the quantum stabilizer. Only humans make those." "But the specifications are in the Council database," argued the engineer. "We should be able to build it." Patrick shook his head. "The specs show what it does, not how it works. The actual technology inside used what you called primitive human approaches to quantum mechanics." Across Council space, the pattern repeated. Systems that had run perfectly for decades began to fail. Council races discovered that the technology they had purchased from humans had been designed with planned obsolescence. Without regular updates from human engineers, the systems were reaching end of life. At an emergency council meeting, Patrick stood before the assembled delegates. "The truth is simple," he said. "Humans were never less advanced than you. We just took different approaches that you dismissed as primitive." "Why would they build technology that would fail?" asked the Arturian delegate. "Because you never treated us as equals," Patrick replied. "Would you share your best technology with those who constantly belittled you?" In the Council military headquarters, reports showed that 3 Council warships had been destroyed by pirates using copied human tactics. The Council fleets, once the most feared in the galaxy, were struggling to adapt. "We always assumed humans were just useful tools," the High Speaker said quietly to Nicole as they watched the reports come in. "We never considered they might be essential." Nicole nodded. "That was your first mistake. I wonder if you'll survive the others." The absence of humanity was creating a void that nothing seemed able to fill. And it was only getting worse. 8 years after humanity's departure, a new danger appeared from the darkness between stars. The first attack came without warning at Outpost 17 on the edge of Council space. The station's final transmission described strange ships that seemed to shift in and out of reality. 2 days later, the colony on Proxus II went silent. When Council ships arrived, they found only empty buildings. No bodies, no signs of battle, just absence, as if the 50,000 colonists had simply vanished. The Council emergency chamber was filled with frightened voices as reports of more attacks flooded in. "What are they?" demanded the Arturian delegate. "We're calling them the Void Swarm," said Admiral Linda Evans. She was one of the last humans in Council service, commanding a small border fleet. Her hologram stood in the center of the chamber, battle-worn and serious. "They appear to be some kind of quantum organic entities. Our weapons barely affect them." On the main screen, images showed the enemy, shifting, cloud-like ships that flickered in and out of normal space. When they attacked, parts of them would become solid enough to tear through hulls and barriers, then shift back to their semi-real state before counterattacks could land. 3 more colonies have been lost," said the High Speaker. "Our best warships can't stop them." The Exilary Empire will handle this threat, announced their ambassador, but his voice lacked confidence. 2 Exilary battle groups had already been destroyed trying to protect their newly claimed territories, the same ones they had taken from humanity. Linda studied the attack patterns on her ship's command center. Her science officer pointed out something strange. The attacks aren't random, Linda said, highlighting several systems on the galactic map. They're following a pattern. Each attack is at a location where human ships frequently used their FTL drives in the past. What does that mean? Asked her first officer. I think they're tracking something, Linda replied. The quantum signature of our old jump technology. Linda's discovery led to a dangerous mission. Her ship, the UES Horizon, traveled deep into territory where the Void Swarm had been spotted. They needed to capture data directly from the strange entities. Inside the Horizon's sensor room, Linda watched as the readings came in from a Void Swarm ship they'd managed to scan up close before escaping. They're not interested in the Council races at all, she said, understanding finally dawning. They're hunting humans. Her science officer nodded. The displacement drive that the humans used to leave, it must have created a unique dimensional signature. The Void Swarm detected it. They see humans as trespassers in their dimensional space, Linda added. They're following the trail that humanity left behind. When Linda presented her findings to the Council, panic spread through the chamber. So these creatures will follow humanity and leave us alone? Asked the Tellarite representative, hope in his voice. Linda shook her head. No. They're methodically checking every place where humans lived or traveled. They won't stop until they've searched all of Council space, and they don't seem to care who gets in their way. The High Speaker looked older than ever before. What are our options? We have 2 choices, Linda said. Try to find humanity to warn them about this threat, or hope the Void Swarm follows humanity's trail away from Council space. Why should we warn the humans? Asked the Exilary ambassador. They abandoned us. Linda looked at him coldly. Because the Void Swarm won't stop with humans. Once they're done with them, they'll come back for anyone who used similar technology. That includes all of you. The chamber fell silent as the truth sank in. The Council races had once thought themselves superior to humanity. Now their only hope might be finding the species they had driven away. 15 years after the Great Exodus, a single ship appeared in orbit around Arcturus VI, a former human colony. The Council observation post detected it immediately. It was clearly of human design, but unlike anything they had seen before. It seemed to shimmer slightly, as if not fully in this dimension. The Council, now desperately fighting a losing war against the Void Swarm, sent Ambassador Lorith to meet with the human vessel. Her ship approached cautiously. This is Ambassador Lorith of the Galactic Council, she transmitted. We request communication with the human vessel. The response was immediate. This is Dr. Ryan Cooper of the Haven Science Vessel Pathfinder. We are prepared to talk. Inside the Council ship's meeting room, Lorith faced the first human most Council members had seen in 15 years. Dr. Cooper was tall and calm, wearing a simple blue uniform with unfamiliar symbols. Why have you returned? Lorith asked. Your kind made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with us. Cooper nodded. We detected dimensional disturbances consistent with Void Swarm activity. We've encountered them before. Lorith's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. You know these creatures? Yes. The Void Swarm exists partially in the dimensional space our displacement drive travels through. They discovered us about 3 years after our relocation to the Haven Expanse. Then they found you, Lorith said. But they're still attacking us. Cooper activated a small device on his wrist. A hologram appeared, showing a map of Void Swarm movements. They're following our old trails, working their way backward through space. They'll continue until they've examined every place humans once lived. Your people caused this, Lorith said bitterly. Your technology brought these creatures here. We didn't know they existed when we developed the drive, Cooper admitted. But we've since learned how to defend against them. That's why I'm here. Lorith narrowed her eyes. You're offering help, after how the Council treated humanity. Yes, Cooper said simply. Because despite what you thought of us, humans don't abandon others to suffering when we can prevent it, even former enemies. 2 days later, a council emergency session convened. Cooper stood before the assembled delegates, many of whom viewed him with suspicion or outright hostility. Humanity has established a thriving civilization in the Haven Expanse, he explained. We've developed our technology far beyond what we had when we left. More importantly, we've learned to counter the Void Swarm. He demonstrated technology that seemed almost magical to the Council races. Dimensional shields that could repel Void Swarm attacks, weapons that could disrupt the quantum field the creatures inhabited. We will share this technology, Cooper continued, but only in exchange for a complete restructuring of the Council. No more hierarchies of species. All races must be treated as equals. Outrage erupted from several delegations. The auxiliary ambassador stood, pointing angrily. You abandon us, bring this disaster upon us, and now you make demands. The Council has existed for millennia. Who are you to demand we change our ways? Cooper waited for the noise to die down. We don't demand anything. We offer a choice. Accept our terms and receive our help, or continue as you are. The High Speaker raised her hand for silence. And if we refuse, then we will leave you to face the Void Swarm alone while we defend our new home. 3 days of heated debate followed. Finally, desperation overcame pride. The Council voted to accept human terms. 1 week later, a delegation of human scientists and military advisors arrived at the Council homeworld. Their leader was General Olivia Bennett, her uniform bearing the patch of the Haven Defense Force. We have much work to do, she said as her team began unloading equipment unlike anything the Council had ever seen, and very little time to do it. The age of human submission was over. The age of true partnership was about to begin. 20 years after humanity's departure, the combined forces of humans and Council races finally pushed back the Void Swarm. The victory came at a high cost. Many worlds were left empty, their populations either evacuated or lost. Ships from both sides floated as silent wrecks in the darkness of space. But something new had been born from the struggle: respect. In the grand chamber that once housed the Galactic Council, a new body now met. The Galactic Assembly had representatives from all species seated in a circle, with no high platforms or special positions. At the center stood Stephen Garcia, the first human elected as High Speaker. Today marks 5 years since the Void Swarm retreated from known space. Garcia said, his voice carried easily through the chamber. Our dimensional barriers continue to hold. The monitoring stations report no new incursions. The old council had been dissolved after the war. The new alliance treated all species as equals, regardless of their technology level or military strength. Ideas and cooperation now mattered more than power. In a quiet corner of the chamber, former Ambassador William Carter watched the proceedings with satisfaction. His hair had turned white, and his face showed the lines of age, but his eyes were bright. "Did you ever imagine this?" asked a voice beside him. Ambassador Nurzak of the Valini had grown even older, his scaled skin now pale and delicate. "Not exactly," Carter admitted. "We just wanted to be treated fairly. We never expected to reshape the entire galactic order." Nurzak nodded slowly. "You humans are remarkable. You turned abandonment into strength, and then victory into reconciliation rather than dominance." In orbit above the assembly world, Dr. Eliza Johnson oversaw the new Displacement Drive Regulatory Commission. The technology that had once allowed humanity to flee was now carefully shared with all species, but important safeguards were in place to prevent the dimensional disruptions that had attracted the Void Swarm. "The Arturian drive tests show stable dimensional fields," reported her assistant. "No signature leakage." Eliza nodded with approval. "Good. Schedule the Telerate tests for next week." The most dramatic moment in the recovery came when Earth and its companion planets returned to their original positions in space. Using massive displacement drives, humanity brought their homeworld back to its familiar orbit around the Sun. The sight of the blue-green planet appearing out of nowhere became a symbol of the new era. Many humans chose to return to Earth and the original colonies. Others remained in the Haven Expanse, maintaining humanity's presence in both regions of space. Regular travel between the two areas strengthened the bonds between all species. On a space station overlooking Earth, William Carter stood at a viewport with Fleet Admiral Samantha Moore. Once his aide, she now commanded the combined fleet that protected both Council space and the Haven Expanse. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when we walked out of the Council that day?" Carter asked. "Not exactly," she admitted, "but I always knew they'd miss us more than they expected." She looked down at the blue-green planet below. "Sometimes you have to leave to find your way home again." In schools across the galaxy, young beings of all species now learned a simple truth. The departure of humanity had changed everything. Not just for humans, but for all intelligent life. What began as humanity's exit had become everyone's new beginning. The old hierarchies were gone. The future would be built on mutual respect and true cooperation. As night fell on Earth, lights came on across cities that had stood empty for years. Humanity had come full circle, returning to their home not as outcasts but as equals, even leaders, in a galaxy forever changed by their absence and their return.